Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dynamis Pod. I'm here this evening with Thomas Bigge, recent WyoTech Automotive Technical School graduate and someone who is recently in the workforce, approximately 5-6 months out of tech school. Before that, he did hold some positions in the automotive industry, though. Tom, it's nice to see you again.
Howdy, Robert. It's nice to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. How long ago was it that you graduated?
I graduated in
March. That's what I thought. So you've been out in the real world, we'll call real world, right? Because you were doing that kind of stuff beforehand.
yes, sir.
You'd been in the industry and you'd worked on vehicles before and decided to come and get an education at a tech school. And so you've been out there since March. Kind of what are the state of things, I guess, would be a good spot to start.
I don't know. I'm kind of in an isolated bubble out here, living in small
Sure.
town, Northwest Kansas. Basically, all independent shops out here. There really is, in small towns, at least out here, there is a real need for mechanics. I'm not too sure if I left here, there would be anybody to fill a spot out here, is the unfortunate deal.
One
So
could
that's
imagine.
that's kind of the big deal around here in small towns like this. It really does affect the community not having something. Because, I mean, then you're even something as simple as a tire change or oil change or anything, people without that are driving 50 miles to go have that something done. I mean,
And when I lived in Wyoming out there, you kind of seen that with almost any service. So I can imagine, I mean, if something happens to your vehicle, I've mentioned before in class, it's like, that's your liberty. That is the thing that can get you somewhere, especially in like an emergency or something like that. If you had to go 50 miles just to get a tire repaired or tire changed, it definitely taxes the consumer pretty heavily.
yeah. Well, and that's just the deal. People don't realize how much they actually depend on a vehicle. I mean, that's what's getting your teachers to work, your children to the hospital, getting food every week. People don't
Sure.
realize how often they drive to go get food,
No,
and
not until you don't have it, right?
yeah, and that's kind of the big deal. People, I mean, that's with all trades. I mean, you don't realize how many times you flip a light switch on or use the bathroom and turn the water on. I mean, it's just crazy how dependent we are on trades.
Definitely. So you been out there now, say 6 months or so, working. You work a couple different jobs, right? Maybe go into
Yeah.
that a little bit.
So right now I work during the week at a independent shop here in town, and then on the weekends I'm working night shift at Blueprint Engines. So I do
Nice.
like CNC machining. We take raw cast blocks from Germany,
Hmm.
and then we're actually machining them into brand new small block Chevys, big blocks, and LSs.
I see.
So that's been pretty cool. Other than that, I'm kind of been tinkering around with trying to start a 3D printing business. Really just trying to find the time to do it's the hard part on that.
Certainly. How many hours a week do you say that you work right now?
Um, right now, average is probably around the 70 mark.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's
it
with
kind
a
of just
drive
depends on
too, right?
that's without the drive.
Without the drive. And let the people know a little bit about the drive that you have to do.
So yeah, when I go up to Blueprint, it'd be 2 hours north of me. So I drive up there Friday midday, get to work
Uh-huh.
around 6, and then Monday morning I drive home around 6:30 a.m.
Which is one of the reasons we were able to record this, because all day Monday, you kind of get a little bit of reprieve. Then you start back up Tuesday morning at the independent shop, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. When you're in Nebraska at Blueprint, do you stay somewhere in particular, or how's that work? You got some
At the
friends that live
moment,
around there?
I'm just staying at a hotel just because it's easy.
Gotcha.
Honestly, it's cheaper than renting an apartment up there for as many days as I stay up there.
Certainly.
And having the breakfast when I get off work is nice.
Definitely.
So,
Man after my own
but
heart, I love to eat. So
yeah,
works out good.
but
So
yeah.
when you graduated, what other honors did you have when you graduated? I know that you'd taken some Snap-on stuff, that type of thing. So what all did you get?
So I had my student ASEs,
All 10 of them?
Snap-on. Yes,
Very good.
passed them all the first time. I had some previous Hunter certifications for alignments.
Yeah, the Snap-on 525F
I had the
multimeter.
the 525F. I had the one for the oscilloscope.
Sure. The Zeus.
I had the Zeus, and then there was some other ones that I did through Valvoline
Okay.
and Rotella and some stuff like that for like quick quick lube service stuff.
Gotcha.
I don't remember the brake lays that we were using.
I
I
think
think
they're
that
a
was
Pro
through
Cut.
ProCut. I had some
Yeah.
ProCut. I got my
Yep.
69 while I was there. That's all the ones I can think of off the top of my head.
The one that I was thinking of that a lot of students ended up getting. How about Ford Ace? Did you do a lot of Ford Ace while you was out there?
I did about 3/4 of it.
Okay,
Fortunately, I didn't finish it while I was in my core, and there
I
wasn't
see.
much time to do it in the specialty. I was working a
Gotcha.
job while I was out there, so doing anything like that after school is really hard.
Yeah, it cuts into it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So the Ford Ace training, how would you describe that? Is that pretty good training?
I think it's more of like introduction to just,
A generalization?
yeah, basically knowledge of what the vehicles are and kind of the basic layout. I don't really
Sure.
think it got into deep diagnostics or anything.
Yeah, I remember taking, not to cut you off, I remember taking, I was tasked with doing gasoline engine diagnostic and diesel engine diagnostic to make level 3 for instructor. And it was a lot of remedial stuff for me, of course, being older and having done it for a longer, amount of time. But I found the videos and I found the way that it flowed actually pretty good. I could see where it would benefit the novice technician coming in off the street, maybe that hasn't worked a lot on cars. But you had some history before you came to WyoTech. Let the people know a little bit about kind of your mentor, where you came from, and that type of thing.
Yeah. So basically, around 10 years old, I really started getting into cars. I don't know, it started with maybe not just cars, but everything mechanical.
Sure.
I'd be taking popsicle sticks and syringes. My mom would bring IV tubing home from the hospital, and I tried to make little hydraulic contraptions. And I was cutting apart bikes, welding them together, just losing tools and breaking stuff and having fun.
Exactly.
Kind of gives me a little bit of heartache knowing the amount of my dad's tools that I lost, but I just tell him it's an investment.
Exactly. Yeah, it's an investment.
But yeah, 13 years old, I decided I was really into cars. I found a car I wanted here in town, and
Uh-huh.
the guy who had it, run a little chassis shop, building hot rods and race cars and stuff. Kind of just started hanging out down there, and basically worked off this car. It was a '94 Crown Vic.
Nice.
Before I had my driver's license, or even old enough to get a driver's license, I cut the muffler off of it,
Yep.
as one does.
It's a rite of passage.
Yeah, man, I tore that car up, but
Yep.
it's the way things go. After that, I think 14 years old, I started kind of like doing an internship at a diesel shop down the road.
Uh-huh.
He taught me a lot. And then ultimately, I found myself at the tire shop that I work at now during the week. And the old man down there, he really taught me a lot. There's a mechanic down there. I know, like I said, I knew I wanted to get into mechanics. And so when we
Uh-huh.
weren't changing tires, I was over there helping turn wrenches, and kind of just taught me the base of everything I know now, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So,
What was the gentleman's name at the diesel shop? I'm curious.
Clayton Taylor.
Clayton Taylor. And the gentleman that was at the shop that you're at now, who was the owner of it, who sadly did pass away just before you graduated school and came back. What was his name?
Steve Hahn.
Steve Hahn.
Yes, sir.
I like to remember those people because I had a similar entry into the automotive field. Did something similar to what you did. I was always very curious about how things worked and always taking things apart, get new toys. They'd be tore up. They didn't always go back together. But I take them apart, look at them, see how they worked. Same thing. I would take stuff, bicycles. We built like 12 bicycles one time out of the junk pile that my dad used to have. As kids in town, we was in a little rural town and did that. And then helped a lot with my cousin Benji. We did a lot of chopped up stuff and put motors and transmissions in vehicles for people and family members and whatnot. One of my best friends growing up, Chip Mack, he used to have an old Oldsmobile that we put a 455 in that was not supposed to go in the Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. And it took quite a bit of finagling to get it in there, but we did a lot of that kind of stuff. And then I ended up as an apprentice type, it was almost at the tail end of that thing even being a thing in our country, where one would call somebody an apprentice. And I had a mentor that was very similar, worked on Volkswagens. He was a Volkswagen master technician. And he was a ASE master technician. He was a double master and moved from Nitro, West Virginia up to Ohio. and he had a little 4-bay shop. And that's where I went with my cousin Benji and a friend of ours named Jeremy. We were his core. 3 technicians and his son had just come, about 16 years old or so. So he was there. So we had 4 bays and basically 4 technicians. And that's how I learned. I had originally looked up and tried to find a technical school and ended up not getting to go. I'd kind of torpedoed my career early in high school and wasn't even able to get to the vocational school, believe it or not. And once I did all that, I mean, I was there 2 years at D's Auto Service in Grove City, Ohio, and learned just the way that you did. So I learned brakes, I learned chassis, I learned engines, engine repair, engine diagnostics, of course. And that was really the beginning of my career. And I was like 18, 19 years old. So when someone goes to tech school, and I've seen this a little bit being on, both sides of the teaching counter now. When someone goes to tech school, would you feel like it's someone who's been in the industry, who has been an apprentice for a little while? Did you find it to be beneficial for them to go to a technical school, or is it really beneficial for someone who's never worked on a car before?
I think it depends on the program.
Sure.
Obviously, my only experience is with WyoTech.
Hmm.
I think WyoTech does a really good job of taking someone who had no experience or very little experience and makes them then into a good entry level tech if they're willing to apply themselves. That's the biggest deal. I think that's the whole industry. If you're willing to apply yourself, then whatever route you take is going to make you money. But
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that last statement, because it really does take someone who's willing to put in not just the 8 hours at school or the 6 hours of schooling that you have each day. It takes someone who like lives and breathes it a lot of times to really gain a good foothold in the industry and move forward.
yeah, if you're just wanting a 9 to 5, in the automotive world, you're not going to grow, unfortunately. The amount of learning and keeping up to date, in the automotive industry, it just requires more than that, unfortunately.
Yeah, with the onset of a lot of technologically advanced vehicles now, it's gotten worse and worse, right?
Mm. Yes, it has. I mean, really go look at just the difference between, 20 years ago when we had OBD1 versus, OBD2 now and actually having body control modules and everything we have now. It's just ridiculous. Trying to get into it can be really tough.
Yeah.
I will say back to the original deal, that is where the technical school really shines, I
Yeah.
think, is being able to get the entry into that because a lot of your independent shops that you might apprentice at aren't going to touch that.
No. And I just can talk from an experience of my own. I know that I really didn't get into electrical until around 17, 18 years ago, maybe a little longer than that. But for whatever reason, I was extremely afraid of electrical for the longest time. And I always loved it. I thought it was very interesting, but I was like, that's not necessarily for me. I did a lot of diagnostic work, but not automotive electrical diagnostic work. I was more drivability, and really kind of cut myself off quite a bit because I could have made more money if I'd have just kind of understood like how important auto electrical was also. And you take any ASE test now, barring a couple of them, they're very electrical and electronic heavy now because of the onset of all the technology that's in the vehicles.
Well, and that's just it is, like I said, without proper training, what does a guy do on that side of
Well,
it?
sadly, you end up burning up a lot of stuff, right? Or blowing a lot of fuses at the very least.
And unfortunately, customer vehicles, that gets really expensive.
Gets very expensive. I remember a long time ago, I had a boss who had a wife who was a triage nurse, and she used to say all the time jokingly about, doctors, they always say they're practicing medicine. She's like, I see it every day and I understand why they say it. And I know what I was like when I was 19. They should call that practicing mechanics, right? Because I know for a fact I can count on 2 hands and probably take my shoes off and keep going of the vehicles that one little thing here and there did not go the way it was supposed to. And that's going to happen. And sadly, in an apprentice type of a setup, that ends up being an issue. But I agree with you. If you can get under the tutelage of someone who has been in the industry for quite some time, got some experience under the belt, and is certified, that that they've went through some testing and they know what they're talking about, and you have someone as a student who definitely wants to apply themselves. I mean, I used to say all the time, and I still say it to this day, the information's out there. If you're a self-sufficient, autodidactic type of a person, you might need very little actual guidance to learn this stuff. However, there's still a little zone of proximal development, that has to be pushed into that with someone maybe to lead you on. But the information is kind of out there and it's almost free to an extent, other than your time being invested in it. But like technical school comes a long way when it comes to getting you the certificate that gets you into the place, that lets them know that you went through a program, you applied yourself, that you got someone, two or three other people that signed your diploma that tells them this person went through these trainings and we have found them to be sufficient to go out into the industry.
Well, and I agree with you on that, but back on that online learning is the
Uh-huh.
big issue is a lot of the people in our field are very hands-on learning.
Yes,
And like myself, I have a really hard time getting on an online program and getting any information out of it
sure.
and retaining it without actually putting my hands on and tearing apart. I have
Yeah.
a hard time.
Yeah, the fancy college educational word is kinesthetic, right? And you're exactly right. Like people that are in this industry and are really passionate about it, sometimes the books, they have a little bit of trouble with the books. Sometimes we actually have learning disabilities. I'm kind of dyslexic every now and again. I will literally transverse numbers, and it happens quite often to me. So when I'm doing that now, I have to really focus on what I'm doing when I'm writing something down, and then go double check it. Also, we have to be hands on because it's like visual and then hands-on. That's really the only two ways that we learn, which probably in the recent years is one of the reasons why YouTube has gotten way better in the industry, because people learn from watching the videos and
Mm.
then they go out and they work on their own vehicles a lot of times because that's what DIYers end up doing. But it's a difficult thing to really grasp the online version or the section of that type of learning.
Well, and you see right now a lot of them are growing like HP Academy.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know,
EFI University.
yeah, and you're teaching at UTI now. I've heard that a lot of their programs are online. I don't know. Is that true?
It's a hybrid setup. So basically, when you do core, there's certain things that are expected of you at home, and then there's certain things that are expected of you when you're at the classroom, and then they have a lab time. So it's actually
Okay.
like kind of a three-legged table, right? And from what I've been able to see, it works really well. The nice part is like the instructor don't really have to worry about having to show a video because a lot of times the online content that's at home is a video. You get into a lot of classroom discussion, so it's a little different with that type, and it gives you a better feel of a more complete education. Let's put it that way. Most of the core classes are 3 hours long, so they run 3 classes a day. And then on the side that I teach, I'm in a manufacturer specific advanced training, so we're 2 courses of 6 hours per day. So right now I'm in training. So I'm basically there teaching in the mornings and then I'm in the other class in the afternoon. So 14 or so hour days. And that's been about 6.5, 7 weeks. And to be honest, I mean, I love it. I mean, it's what I did and on top of what I used to do when I was at WyoTech. So it's been a great fit for what I like to do.
Would you say that's more of a conversation-based lecture style?
Yes, it's actually seated a lot of times. You're basically at a table and it's like a U-shaped style kind of, and you have very low amount of students as far as the MSATs go. So it's like 10 to 12 students tops in the one that I'm in, and it works really well. Information, you have enough time to actually give the information. You have enough time for the student to really grasp it, and they get to use their notes quite a bit. So it's a very holistic way to teach somebody. It's not like, hey, you have to know this by this date. It's, hey, let's move to this level now and let's move one more thing on top of what we're having you do.
Mm.
It's like a lot of information, but it's actually layered out really well, I would put it.
Now, how does that translate into working in the shop? Are you
Pretty
taking
well.
that days?
Yeah. So actually, the way it works for what I do is the morning time for a couple hours is basically like a recap. And then from the day before, like, what did you learn? Everyone kind of participates. It's very unlike school. Like, I take a ball and I throw the ball around this talking ball, right? Here, you talk. You get to talk while you got the ball, throw it to somebody else or throw it back to me, throw it back over. Um, then it's kind of on days that they have like a self-study, assessment, there's a download. So everybody that's got their notes gets to go up on the board, write stuff down. It's very interactive. So I like to liken it like playing Kahoot, but in real life. So there's magnets that go on the whiteboard that you can have them fill out. There's a lot of different flashcards that we use, a lot of different ways of actually learning. So we don't just take one approach. It's multi-level approach as far as the way that we transfer knowledge.
I
And
see.
then they get to take that into the shop for the last 3 hours of class.
Awesome.
So it's actually kind of weird because it's nothing like what I had been told when I was out there.
Yeah.
You know, it's always it's the big bad other school, right? And honestly, like my point would be is why not have a lot of places doing a really good job at trying to train students, whether that's any place. Now, of course, you know, the law of hierarchies and Pareto's law is going to automatically start splitting that apart.
Mhm.
However, it's like I would rather it be more of a partnership, not that you have to be the same, but hey, let's focus on the student. And I feel like that's what I've got myself wrapped up into now a lot more.
Yeah, furthering the
If that
industry.
makes sense, yes, furthering the industry. If that makes sense. And I
Yeah.
think I stated that in a way that's pretty good, to be honest. It's very fair. It's very accurate.
Well, and that's the unfortunate, there's too many divided groups at the moment.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, we have a big enough problem in the industry getting people in and retaining people, and that's the biggest part's retaining them. Uh,
Right.
that, it's going to take a more group together effort, on every level from dealerships taking in apprentices to trade schools, making
Sure.
it more affordable and more accessible, and even the government, trying to help push more trades and maybe not and pull some of the push off the 4-year college.
Sure. Yeah, there's been quite a bit a shift, sea change, you know, going into the last 20 to 30 years anyways, from going from trades being in high schools and you know, some things were in middle school. I remember taking industrial arts class in 7th grade. And that was really like an introduction to computer. We used a program on there that taught you about coefficient of drag in the 7th grade. This is a rural school near Circleville, Ohio, and you know, Mount Sterling, Ohio. You know, that's kind of podunk, small place that I grew up, and we were doing that out there. We learned how to use the epoxy and make test tube style flat tip screwdrivers, where we actually forged the screwdriver tip and then heat treated it and then tempered it and then made the epoxy as the handle. So you had to find a way to make sure that the handle would stay on the metal. So you had to actually pinch the two sides of the metal on the actual screwdriver to get it to stay in there once it was, you know, in there. So a lot of stuff that they do not do now. A lot of hands-on things that were even all the way into middle school,
I
like I
say
was saying.
school I went to, we didn't have any automotive program at all. I think
Sure.
they do now, but it's probably pretty small.
Yeah. We did metal shop and wood shop in high school and industrial arts in middle school. That was pretty much it. It was not a automotive program. We had a vocational system. So, and that's a system earlier I was just discussing it. I didn't make it. Like I did not make the cut. Like going into my junior year of high school, I had 2 credits. I had to have 18 credits to graduate. So I had two. There was no way I was graduating, and they knew it. They were perfectly fine keeping me there as long as possible so they could get their federal money.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the way the game's played at the moment.
Yes, it is. It's very sad. It's very sad. There's a lot of students who were like me that would have benefited from a program where they got to use their hands more and they didn't sit inside of a box and feel like they were in a prison. And that's what a lot of students feel like, even to this day, in your middle schools, your high schools. And COVID definitely did not help. COVID did not
No.
help anything. But sadly, like you said, that is kind of the way it goes. I don't know if you was in a class. I'm pretty sure I was playing it even as far back as when I had you in EMS,
Mm.
the micro video from 2012, 2010, something like that. Was you part of that class? Because I played that almost the entire time I was there.
Yeah, I think I wasn't your very first. I think I was your second class you had there.
I got you. So yeah, I was definitely full swing playing it then because I had been underneath Jim Brim for about a year, and then once I made lead, I moved over to EMSB
Went to the dark
and then over
side.
to C. Yeah. Yeah. Then I went to the B class. But they, you know, like that video talking about the trades, talking about the way that really the government had, you know, done this weird 3 or 4 prong attack on the trades, pushing it off, pushing it, you know, way off and saying, in order to be successful in America, you have to have a 2 or a 4 year degree now. You can't do these other things, right? I don't know. To me, it's just sinister. It's like, who do they expect is going to fix all this stuff?
Right. Well, and a political science
It's
degree is not going to get your car fixed at the end of the day. I mean,
no. Gender studies won't. None of that stuff will, right? Like, that's all well and good. People want to, you know, they want to study things. I'm all for that. even the stuff I don't agree with because it's America. That's fine. I don't want to pay for it, but also like there's tons of things out there that they're not getting fixed. I mean, infrastructure, construction, you look all the way up the chart. I mean, even stuff the government is paying for, people are not getting their money's worth for it. It's not
Nope.
happening.
And
I mean,
that's the unfortunate deal.
I think even in that video, Mike Rowe talks about the level of infrastructure is at a D on most bridges in the country, which come to fruition during Biden. One of the bridges fell. One got hit by a Mexican Navy vessel. I don't know how that happens, but
Mm.
and then another one literally fell. So all that stuff that we've been told about shovel-ready jobs and all these other things never came to fruition. Stuff didn't get fixed.
Well, and that's where government support for on the apprenticeship, whether it be tax breaks for the dealerships for taking in the apprentice or
Something.
more funding for trades. I mean,
Mhm.
that would help. Fortunately, people don't realize the impact that tradespeople have on the community. I mean, we were talking about the other day, the mechanic's going to fix your car. That's what's going to be able to get you to the hospital, get you food,
Yeah,
even stuff like air conditioning. How does your food going to stay cold to make it to the Walmart? How are the medications going to stay cold? We don't have electricity, none
definitely.
of it will work.
Yeah,
People
and
don't take that into account.
no, they don't at all. And that's with power generation, all these different, technical areas that not only do we need more people in, we need more innovation in those areas for everything. I'm for doing solar where it's, necessary, where it makes sense. I'm for, natural gas where it makes sense. I'm for ice engines where they make sense. I'm for, dirty old diesel engines where they make sense because we have to have that stuff. Like we're not to the level of where we can just change off. Oh, we're going to do one thing now. First off, that's putting all your eggs in one basket. That's not smart anyways. And any financial advisor would tell you, like, don't take all of your money and put it in one spot.
Unfortunately,
It's kind of what we do.
yeah, unfortunately, in the past 15, 20 years, it feels like the industry's been kind of at each other's throats on that.
Sure. Well, it's a money grab, right?
Yeah,
Everyone's trying to run to get that money.
yeah. And when one gig's up, they're on to the next one already, on that deal.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of the things that was talked about was in that video was the way that working people are portrayed, like as they're stupid, as they don't know any better. One of the things that he used in there was like, you see a plumber on TV, automatically is really overweight and he's got a crack, the crack of his butt's hanging out of his pants. Like he said, we either turn people into punchlines or we turn them into, faux heroes. And it's like that's accurate. And he said that it's a lot to do with Madison Avenue. So one of the places in New York, of course, it runs the advertising. So he's like, we push people down that really have actual technical jobs that quite frankly, and I've mentioned this on this podcast before, if we don't do the things that we're supposed to do and we know how to do, the other half don't live. So they don't have the things that the foundation of the country, will call it, because that's what I like to say. You don't have those things anymore. You don't have power. You don't have refrigeration. You don't have concrete being poured. You don't have construction. You don't have vehicles driving. You don't have airplanes in the sky, right? So I mention a lot to students all the time, like, hey, you're gonna run into people that's gonna look down on you for what you do. Everyone goes through that at a certain point. There's always somebody that's, thinks that they're a lot more high and lofty than you are and knows more. But I always say, like, deep down, you have to remember that without you, they don't actually get to live the lives that they live. So in a way, you're more important than they are. So you know how to fix something and they don't necessarily know how to do that. You know how to build something, right? And that's one of the nice things about doing what I do now is like, it's a little more holistic because there's a PLC and a robotics program. There is a BMW program. There's a Cummins program. There's a welding program. There's also airplane programs at other campuses. There's a NASCAR program, all these different things that all kind of coincide and go together with a lot of different industry.
Well, and that's just like I said, that's the approach we got to take on that.
Yes,
And like I said, without it, unfortunately, we're on a path where if we don't correct it, we're not going to have anybody. That's the problem.
sure. On the subject of that, so not having anybody, a lot of times dealerships, aftermarket shops, chain stores, no matter where at, a lot of times you see that a lot of places run into what I call churn. I call it like everyone's kind of in this area of water and then they're kind of getting moved around. So they get into this spot where there's a lot of churn at all these different places, and a lot of places call it turnover. What is it that you think that management might be able to do from your perspective, being younger, wanting to get to a place where you have a little bit more work-life balance, where you're not doing something for, 70 to 80 hours a week with drive time, certainly. What do you think it is that management might be able to do that would keep people at the places where they come to work?
Well, I think the biggest deal at the moment is biting the hand that feeds you is what's hurting us at the moment. I haven't worked in the dealership side yet,
Hmm.
but what I've kind of seen from other people I know that have is that service advisors don't realize that what's feeding their paycheck is making the techs efficient. If that makes sense.
Sure. No, I
And
could see that. 'Cause it is one big team, right? And if you got warring factions a lot of times, and I've got to see it being on both sides of the counter too, where that does kinda happen. You might have a interpersonal conflict, you might have, workplace politics that gets involved. There's a lot of different stuff that can be involved, right?
like I said, service advisor, a lot of the times, this is just from what I've heard from other people, but that
Mhm.
are working that role, is that a lot of times their pay is based on the amount of hours that rolls through the shop. It's not just a normal salary or whatever.
That's
And
right.
unfortunately, if you're not taking care of your techs and not making them more efficient, that's going to make your paycheck go down. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably why service advisor is one of the higher burnouts in the industry, is because you're having to keep the techs efficient, keeping them happy, keeping your customer happy is
Mhm.
the biggest one, and just managing your time. Now, think another issue is you get a lead tech, a lot of the times you get an ego going,
Mhm.
or you don't want the text below
Seen that.
you to surpass you. And the problem is a lot of people don't realize, without the good teacher willing to teach you past their knowledge, if that makes sense.
Yes,
I don't know if
it
I
does.
worded that right, but your goal as a teacher should be to make your students more knowledgeable than you are.
Well, and I think, I mean, the Bible even says, like, you will know them by their fruits, right? Like my fruit as someone who teaches now and was a technician and still, I mean, I had to work on my own car over the weekend. I still work on stuff, but it's like the goal should be is to make you so good that you could go out and you could actually teach it also. Like you should be high in your industry and then have a want and a hunger to do even more so than someone who might have been a mentor, someone who was a teacher, someone in the industry that you look up to even. You should want to do even more, right? And if you can inspire people to do that and teach them past your own knowledge, because there is something to that. I mean, it's not, it sounds counterintuitive, but it really isn't, right? Like, it sounds like, "Oh, I can't teach somebody things that I don't know or past my own knowledge." Actually, you can. Like, you can teach them to the level that they wanna know even more than you knew, and they wanna do the job even better that you was able to. So, I think there's something to that as far as the way that the industry goes and how it flourishes.
Well, and kind of how I see it is you shouldn't be teaching. I mean, yeah, you can teach individual little tricks and stuff. I mean, what really helps a person the most is teaching someone how to learn, if that makes
Yes,
sense.
it does.
Um, teaching them the ability, giving them the tools to be able to adapt and overcome whatever problem they're given. I mean, that's
Right.
ultimately the name of the game in this industry. How well can you get in there, figure out the problem, and fix it, properly, efficiently, and cost effective.
Sure. Because, I mean, it comes down to what kinda money are you able to make for the place and making sure that the customer is taken care of, right?
But like I said, that's probably the biggest problem management at the moment is just keeping an environment where learning is encouraged and
Sure.
kind of taking the greed out of it. If one person in your team succeeds, that brings up the whole team,
Yep.
and vice versa. If one person is dragging, it drags down the rest of the team. Kind of the team mentality is probably the biggest thing how we can improve.
In the industry, we used to call it silos. Everything's siloed off. Finance is siloed off from sales. Sales is finance, they're siloed off from people in service. Arts is siloed off from the people in service. It does happen quite a bit. So something came up one day, like a meet and greet. I want to run this past you because I think this actually is a pretty good idea. I thought of this years ago, but it's very hard to get anybody to kind of buy into it. Cross training. So like a new technician or even somebody that's in the wash bay comes into a dealership, we'll call it, and management automatically has a actual training program laid out for them where one day a week, maybe 2 days a week for a little while, maybe once a year, They actually move around the dealership and learn what each person goes through each day. Now, that might, on the face of it, someone might say, well, that sounds like a waste of money. But I think in the long run, because that's what we have a really hard time doing in the industry is looking way ahead. We get very myopic and we only see things right up near us, right? So I think in the long run, though, if a person is going to be a technician or any position really in the dealership, um, if they get to see what are the stresses, what are the things that happens to somebody else in the day, go to finance and sit with somebody while they actually run through a deal and they're trying to sell the F&I packages and they're trying to sell the wheels packages to fix the wheels if something happens to them, all those things. You go to sales and find out what it's like to make phone calls, right? You're calling people and then you have an up that comes in, it rolls up out front. It's like, oh, I got to go and talk to those people, right? To see that and how it all actually works from a like a 30,000-foot view and then get to know each person a little bit, I think that goes way further than probably most people in the industry even realize.
I
What's your
agree.
take on something like that, like a cross training type of a deal?
And if you have, say, you have a salesman that better understands the technician's job or the service advisor's job, maybe he can turn
Exactly.
that into, he can explain that better to the customer of what the importance that
Yes.
is. And that is the very
Everybody learns.
smallest part of it. And group cohesiveness with that would definitely go up, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Everybody learns in that scenario. You may miss as a salesperson, say, we had sales come back and actually, um, cross train with somebody in the back, say a used car, even this, a used car service advisor, because they deal with them a little bit, but they don't really get to see what they do during the day, right? And that might scare some people because they're like, I don't want them to see what I do during the day. It might feel like Office Space movie where the two Bobs show up, right? Like,
right.
what exactly is it that you say you do here, during a day? But really, it would give them insight into what actually happens with that position. Like I said, the stress is how it is for a technician that is waiting on a part and hasn't had a part. And maybe it's on intergalactic back order because I've run into plenty of that in my career. You just don't know those things if you don't actually experience them like the people that are involved. So like group cohesiveness, I think is probably the best thing that would come out of it is like, hey, maybe I can show a little grace in this situation. I've watched and I see how they actually are upset when they don't get the correct part, or they're upset when they've used the right VIN number and something showed up and it was not even the same thing that was in the picture, which can happen. So I think that will go a long way to that. One other one that I heard, this is pretty fairly novel. Porter's going to get in vehicles for technicians to make technicians more efficient, keeping them in their bay in front of the toolbox, which in hand, right? Kiosks actually in the shop that are on wheels and parts
So how does
runners
that
that will
work?
bring the parts kiosk in the shop makes it to where the technician doesn't have to go wait at a counter. So you have maybe one or two more people and there's a kiosk and people come to it and they talk to the parts person right there in the shop. Basically you're splitting off your parts departments, right? Your commercial and your regular retail sometimes is a little split, but you still got to kind of go to the window. Technicians lollygag there a lot. I've seen it. I've done it. It's almost like going to the tool truck, believe it or not. People go up, they start talking, they're bullshitting back and forth. Hey, how's it been? How's the wife? How's the kids? What are we doing this weekend? What all that kind of stuff happens there. But that's not conducive to getting the customer's vehicle fixed in a timely fashion right the first time. None of that is. That's all fluff, right? That's what I used to call fluff. So parts in the shop and also parts runners that bring the parts to the technician. Now, when I say that, I'm mentioning like there's luxury brands that are trying this out, just like they started doing during COVID when they all had to pivot and start doing concierge service when some were already doing it. Wasn't real popular at that point, but as soon as COVID hit, concierge service was chef's kiss. Everybody wanted it and everybody was doing it as a dealer. So I think those are some pretty novel ideas that we'll see. I mean, they may or may not catch on, but to be quite honest, I mean, if a dealership was looking at the bottom line, customers being, serviced, making them happy, and technicians making the money that they'd like to make. The longer they're in their bay, the more money they have the potential to make. They can't make it at the tool truck. They can't make it over parts waiting on stuff. Whether whose fault it is, it doesn't matter if they're talking on their part or if it's the parts person dragging their feet. The real way to make it more efficient is to actually make it efficient, right? Not just talk about it, not just, sit back and form a committee. That happens quite a bit. A lot of bureaucracy, like kind of what we were talking about earlier with, government type stuff.
Yeah, meeting for the meeting, right?
Yeah, I always have a meeting for the meeting. You'll never guess how many meetings I've been in right now. Goose egg. No meetings. Talking like human beings, done plenty of it. Meetings, no, 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 no. That's not conducive to a healthy environment. Smart is what that is.
Well, and kind of on that, what you're saying with the parts kiosk and all that,
Uh-huh.
ultimately, you got to look at, I think most shops can be evaluated on their efficiency just by, like you said, wrench time.
Sure.
How much time is the mechanic actually, hands on the vehicle?
Exactly.
And the other part people don't realize about that is you got to have something in most or something in place to make them want to be motivated. You
Yes.
know, where,
Like really great incentives to actually do the work, right?
right. I mean, if $100 bonus, gets you 1,000 more dollars worth of labor a week, that's $900 in the bank. And
I've
unfortunately,
literally I've watched technicians go through, find the safety stuff, but also then look through the vehicle and really find the things that maybe almost doing a CPO inspection on it to find for the customer. Like, hey, over $100 bonus at the end of the month. Like we're talking about $100 bonus at the end of the month. I've seen guys do that. So you're 100% accurate on even the small things, right? Like a PTO day once a month. Whoever wins it gets to have an 8-hour additional day added to their vacation they got taken within that calendar year. Like anything that's an incentive, right?
a lot of places aren't doing anything at all. I
No.
mean, that's
Well, and it falls back to the pizza party. It falls back to that kind of stuff that actually gives the industry kind of a bad name, like between management and the worker, right?
right. Well, and unfortunately, at least from my perspective, I'm not, upper management or anything, but it feels like there's a lot of bean counters at the top that, maybe what you're saying about the cross training, even
Hmm.
your dispatcher, your front car salesman, all, all cross training with each other just to see everything.
Hmm.
Maybe some of that, come to light. But, like I was saying, unfortunately, with the bean counters up top in some places that you're just not going to get that incentive because it doesn't make sense to them.
Right. And most things take 90 days or so. And like we're dealing with any advertisement or any of that kind of stuff, most things take 90 days or so for you to see any type of actual movement, any ripple in the water. So if someone sees that, like you're saying, somebody that's looking at it from the accounting standpoint goes, man, we're like negative 5 grand this month because we did a lot of training. It's like training, costs. Training pays you in the long run. And that's the thing. I mean, most people that are in this industry, I ran into this recently. Someone took an AC test. It was free. They failed it. Then it was like, well, to take another one, it's $98. And I'm like, you know what it was for me to recert 5 and buy 4 and do a registration fee? It's almost $400. But it was important to me. And I made sure I came up with the money to pay for it and go get it because it's important. Like you need to do that. That's an investment in yourself, whether anybody else is going to pay for it or not. Like study hard. You failed it. So what? Study hard. Go take it again. It can be done. So that kind of stuff, not just on management side, but it's on the technician side also. I've heard it said lunch and learns. And when Lunch and Learns came out, I'm like, I don't know. I don't really like the fact that a technician would have to spend his lunch and not get paid. And some places may pay to have you do that, to be quite honest. Um, but then it's like, I got to watch this learning thing while I'm trying to eat my food. And then I thought back, I almost always ate at my toolbox. Like I could definitely do that. And then doing the training like I've done in the past, that's what ends up happening anyway. So it's like, why not go ahead and take the opportunity to learn and train yourself even better than you were, 25 minutes ago or 2 days ago?
Well,
Take the initiative and do it.
your most successful technicians are the ones that are wanting to learn, who are doing every
Yes.
training. And even if they're not doing every training, they're going out of their way to take on new jobs that they're going to learn from.
Yes. The obstacle is the way, right? Yeah, that's exactly right, though. Like you have to go outside of the normal paths sometimes to go find those really great trainings or those things that you want to learn about. And I know I've said it multiple times, teaching class. If you take anything away from the course, hopefully it's a passion to learn that you would be fervent in your learning to go out there and try to learn as much as you possibly can, not just about automobiles, but about everything. Be a well-rounded human being. There's nothing wrong with it.
Well, and another thing is, like you're saying, with the cost of training,
Hmm.
go look at like a hunter alignment training. There's three or four of them. I think they're roughly $500 a course. And they're in person, but
Yes.
like why do I need to go do that if I'm already doing alignments every day? Well, if you go learn even how to take 10 minutes off an alignment,
Yes.
you do 6 alignment sets, you're saving an hour. And an hour of mechanic time isn't necessarily an hour of clock time, especially
No.
when you're on flat rate and you know what you're doing and you're able to turn that into maybe throughout the week, that 10 minutes on each job you're saving, that turns into 3 or 4 jobs a week.
Sure it does. Yeah, it adds to your efficiency numbers, right? Anybody that's ever worked with me out there that it happens to watch this podcast, they'll remember this saying because I used to always say, if I come to work, if I have to be here, if I got to be here for 8, I want to make 10, I want to make 12. And also, the other one was I didn't come here to make technician money. I came here to make attorney money. I want to do a 4-hour job in 2 hours and do it right the first time, but do it in 2 hours. I don't want it to just show up and then kind of hang here all day long, like too much romanticism about the position a lot of times too. Like it used to be said in the dealership world, like one of the reasons that we have some of the issues that we have is we don't actually go out and try to hire the correct people, meaning that we don't hire the people that know it's going to be kind of an uphill trog almost every day sometimes. Not that it's always that way, but it can be. Like you don't hire that person. You hire the person that you kind of coax in like a scared little rabbit with a carrot, right? Come on in, little rabbit. It's going to be a lot of fun. I promise. You're going to get to work on a lot of stuff. It's going to be the most wonderful thing you've ever done. And it's not like that all the time. There are sometimes it's really great, but then there's times it's like, oh my gosh, like this is what I've chosen to do. Like, how did I get talked into this? Right. But it's a very rewarding position.
It
To
is.
me, it was always about fixing something. I can say I was able to take something that was absolute crap and something was wrong with it. And I was able to make it the way it was supposed to be. Maybe better than factory.
Well, that's always the goal.
Yeah. It's a job well done.
Yeah. And on the other side of that, when the dealership or whoever independent do find that person that they need to be hiring, they're not willing to pay them enough.
Sure. Yeah, it can
And
be a problem.
and like I said, I have a very small view on that because of where I live. It's not like I'm in Houston or Kansas City or anywhere else, a big city, But at least from what I can see in this region, there's a real struggle just trying to get enough money to hire
Yeah,
people that are knowledgeable.
you've got a little bit of a market issue where you're at, don't you?
Yeah. It's
But
kind
you
of
still have people that need their
yeah.
vehicles fixed, huh?
Well, that's just the issue is there's kind of a slot, here's the top end, here's the bottom end. It's really hard to get out of that. You're going to make enough to live out here. It's cheap living and something I really enjoy about it, but also a technician isn't going to make 6 figures out here working for another shop. And then if you own the shop, say you make 6 figures, then you're paying the tools and paying insurance and yada yada yada
Yeah.
go down the line. So I feel like not just here, but that's kind of the problem getting out, starting a automotive business at the moment.
Yeah.
Unless you're really specialized, trim and upholstery is one of those where you can have $15,000-$20,000 in equipment. If you have the knowledge to do really good trim and upholstery work, you can make a lot of money.
Yes.
But unfortunately, a lot of the field, the overhead is really high, can be over really high, and
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, I could see it being that way. Just like you were saying with the healthcare costs and all that kind of stuff. If you're a shop with 5 or 6 people in it, a lot of times there's a certain cutoff, so they don't really have to buy insurance for you. But even as the owner, like if you're buying insurance for one person right now, I don't know how you'd make it. Even if you bought into Obamacare, I don't know how you would make it because the level of care for the money that you spend any longer, that's nothing like it was just 3 or 4 years ago, let alone, you know,
well,
uh,
ultimately
20 years
that's
ago.
yeah, and ultimately that's driving shops to just not doing it, not buying into it,
Yeah.
which leaves the
Which hurts
technicians
everybody.
yeah, it leaves the technicians unprotected. It makes them, less willing to do good work,
Yeah. And that place is
and
less attractive for somebody to come to it, right?
yeah,
So it
and then
ultimately it's hurting them in the long run.
the tech feels like he's trapped there,
Yeah.
and ultimately that's going to affect the amount of hours he's putting out and the quality of the job he's going to put out.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially one that's the technician that's really successful in today's industry has that hunger that no matter what the outside whatever's going on, he's going to do the right job. But Unfortunately, not every technician's like that.
No, and that comes to, a whole other side of, the industry. It gets kinda, beat up, bad people, "This technician did this to me," that kinda thing. But there are a lot of really good technicians out there. There are a lot of really good people in the industry that would bend over backwards for you, take the shirt off their back and hand it to you, that kinda stuff. And, a lot of shops have those people at it too.
Well, and that's where the environment for apprentices to learn is. And like I said, we need to do a better job of opening that up and finding out what makes that happen and producing more of it.
Yeah, definitely. I have a guy that I used to work with at a Firestone store. We were both flat rate, and he now is the foreman of the commercial side in a Dodge dealership. So Chrysler Dodge, was it CJDR Performance, like a Performance Chrysler, and he's got like 22 technicians under him right now, and 25% of them are like in an apprentice program that they do there at the dealer, because they have that type of level of work that needs to be done. They usually stay between 40 to 60 ROs backed up all the time. So they're doing your, diesel, Cummins, they're doing, Sprinter vans, all that kind of stuff, not the Sprinter vans, but like the Chrysler version of a Sprinter van. So they're doing a lot of that kind of stuff. The Ram vans is what I'm trying to get at. And, he's like, the need that's out here for to have people that can learn how to do this stuff is off the charts. They get in there, they get paid pretty well, pretty decent money, and they usually end up sticking around. So I think, one of the places where we could definitely do a lot better, and this goes all the way back to 2017. I was writing about this when I was at Jaguar Land Rover. The industry just it's not spending enough money on its future. Like, they get myopic. People that are the bean counters, people that try to look out for the so-called future, they're actually looking out for this month's, are we going to hit our goal? Are we going to make the money off of it? And you have to be profitable. I totally understand that side of it too. But on the same token, you have to plan for your future also. And right now it seems like everyone's like, well, devil may care type attitude, whatever comes, comes, and we'll deal with it then, you know? It's not really how it's gonna work. I mean, at some
Well,
point,
and
it dries up.
yeah, and I think that's been a thing for a long time, and that's why people like Lee Iacocca were so successful. And when they come around,
Sure.
those guys absolutely kill it. The
Yeah.
people that have
It's
the ability to look in
it's
the
like a once in
future.
a lifetime person, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy that such a, common concept, is very little people actually use it effectively.
Yes. And they're so afraid of, like, worrying about what the herd has to say that they won't just kind of depart and walk their own direction. They're scared to death.
And that's the unfortunate deal. And we as people do a good job of putting pressure on that.
Yeah, definitely so.
Yep. It's a crazy world out there, Robert.
Yes, it is, Tom. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Dynamis Pod. I'm Robert. This has been Thomas. Tom, give the people a little bit with your social, so your Facebook page that you've got.
Yeah. I'm just Tom Bigge on Facebook. Biggie spelled Bigge. That's it for me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm the same thing.
Very nice.
Yep, I'll be trying to get some of that 3D printing stuff here up and going soon. Haven't settled on a name yet, but hopefully we'll get that and share it to you, Robert, so you can share it to your people.
Very good. Been great talking to you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Anytime. We'll definitely do it again.
Alrighty.
And we're out.